When occasionally it would happen that enemy aircraft met in the air, the event would usually be observed with a friendly wave exchanged between crews. The enemy were, after all, fellow airmen, and whether the machine carried a cross or a roundel on its wings was chiefly a matter of politics. It did not take long to realize, however, that depriving the enemy of their ability to gather information from the air would render a tremendous advantage to either side, and so observers began carrying pistols and rifles aloft. If this turn of event had taken on a rather unfriendlier tone, it had not created any threat to be taken seriously. To be sure, planes were returning to their home bases with the odd bullet hole in the wings or fuselage, but beyond that, aircrews generally went about their work undisturbed. A machine gun, mounted for the use of the observer, seemed to be the obvious solution of the problem, but as of yet no adequate weapon existed. Lieutenant Strange, the pilot who'd arrived in France with a machine gun mounted on his airplane, had quickly discarded the weapon. The added weight had bogged down the performance of his Farman to the point that he'd been unable to catch up and maneuver on any German planes. Still, to everyone involved, it was understood that a proper weapon would be needed for the aircrews, and so both sides were working at developing lighter machine guns. The first weapons being affixed to planes were basically modified versions of the guns being used by the soldiers on the ground. The French began experimenting with the Hotchkiss gun, while the British armed some of its planes with the Lewis, an air-cooled weapon that took its feed from a magazine carousel. Neither of these machine guns were particularly well suited for aircraft, being heavy and prone to frequent stoppages. There was also considerable interest in developing the airplane as a weapon to drop bombs. In the opening weeks of the war, German Zeppelins had been used to drop bombs on targets in Belgium and France. Although they did manage to kill some civilians, the raids had caused little damage to any military targets, and 3 of the attacking airships had been destroyed by ground fire. For bombs, the raiders had used artillery shells with their noses weighted, but most of them had failed to explode on impact. It was not an encouraging start for the Zeppelins at war. The first bombing raids with aircraft were carried out by the Royal Naval Air Service. In Great Britain, the Sopwith Aviation Company had unveiled the Tabloid, a single-place scouting machine based on a pre-war racing design. Sturdy and easy to fly, the Tabloid could reach a speed of 90 miles an hour and stay aloft for 3 hours. It was the first in an excellent line of aircraft that would culminate 4 years later with the Sopwith Snipe. On September 22nd, a Royal Naval flight of 4 Tabloids had been sent from their base in Antwerp to bomb the Zeppelin sheds in Dusseldorf. Only one machine, piloted by Flight Lieutenant R.L.G. Marix, had managed to make the 100-mile flight to the German target. After circling once over the huge hangars used to house the dirigibles, Marix had tossed his 2 20-pound bombs over the side of his plane and immediately been rewarded when one of the sheds went up in a fireball. The L-9, a brand new airship, was destroyed, and the British pilot flew home with the knowledge that another military use for the airplane had been confirmed.